Good morning, everybody. In this video we're going to look at the Commonwealth War Graves Commission Cemetery Cross, otherwise known as the Cross of Sacrifice. You can also see these videos on patreon.com, and if you wish you can always buy me a coffee on the link below. On the battlefields, the large cemeteries are the most frequented and easy to find. Passing through the France and Flanders countryside, a tall white stone cross silhouetted against the blue sky, against a field of ripening wheat or deep green trees, flags the presence of a hidden cemetery. Here you can see it in the distance, and if we zoom in, there we go, we've got the cemetery cross and the small cemetery. From both sides it's clearly visible. And in some cemeteries it gives some interesting effects with the sunshine. The cemetery cross is now an accepted and integral part of battlefield cemetery visits. However, it was not initially an automatic choice. Fabien Ware arrived in France on 19th of September 1914 to work with the British Red Cross to look for wounded behind the front lines. This developed into registering the wounded, killed and missing. Details of his long work and dedication may be covered in a later presentation. Ware had worked to help the legislation of 29th of December 1915, allowing cemetery plots to be granted to Britain in perpetuity. By May 1917, Ware had formed the Imperial War Graves Commission and could start to work upon organising the permanent British cemeteries. This was not easy as the war was not over and lines were moving back and forth with the fighting. Hitherto, the cemeteries consisted of simple rows of wooden crosses and maybe a perimeter barbed wire fence. After signing of the Imperial War Graves Commission Charter in May 1917, an advisory committee of the director of the Tate Gallery, Charles Aitken, and the architects Herbert Baker and Edwin Lutyens, along with Andrew Hill, were sent out in July 1917 to report on future treatment of the cemeteries. Ideas were then coming thick and fast from several sources. There was need for guidance. How should the cemeteries be designed? In November 1917, Sir Frederick Kenyon from the British Museum was asked to report on cemeteries and memorials. He produced his report on 28th of January 1918. Kenyon was enthusiastic about the Lutyens Warstone, which he suggested should be placed on the eastern side of each cemetery. He also thought that each cemetery also needed a stone cross as a symbol of Christian faith and self-sacrifice for the men who would lie under its shadow. The principal architect started to look at cross designs. Kenyon suggested avoiding a simple flat cross and use a cross with English country churchyard connotations. Herbert Baker produced several. This is his Celtic option. A small Celtic cross on the top, hexagonal shaft on an octagonal base. He called it the Ypres cross. He also did a medieval option, a small cross at the top, hexagonal shaft and octagonal base again. He also did an Indian option with a mandala at the top on a disc separately, deliberately blurred. This is on a circular Ashok shaft with the same octagonal base. Baker's Ashok column was used at Neuve Chapelle Indian Memorial with a different top. This is one of the Baker crosses at Delville Wood Memorial. Lutyens did a cross option. This is a rather flat cross in profile. The base is rather strange saucer shape. The head of the cross is simplified, very distinguishable as a cross from afar. Lutyens didn't actually submit this design, but it was used in some countryside situations, here at Kingsonborne and Stockbridge. The Blomfield Cross of Remembrance was the accepted model. Abstract, impersonal, free of any particular style, clear of the sentimentalities of Gothic. The inspiration from a sword hung in his home in Rye, the sword symbolic of war. The final choice, which now seems so natural having seen it so many times, fits well into large and small cemeteries alike. The cross always appears very stable, the base is solid, and the base wide enough to make a seat for weary battlefield fanatics. Note that the base on the smaller cross has a protruding rim, which doesn't exist on the bigger crosses. So 4 different sizes were produced, and you can compare the size of the base with the base of the Stone of Remembrance on this Commonwealth War Graves Commission drawing. Entasis was designed into the cross and the Stone of Remembrance. Entasis, to cut a long story short, is a method of compensation for an optical illusion. We tend to see a long straight line as being slightly curved. Normally this doesn't matter, but in a building or structure it's preferable that they look straight, and it applies to both vertical and horizontal. The bronze sword came in various sizes, 6 foot 9.5, 8 foot 7, 10 foot 8 3/4, 12 foot 10.5, which is from 2 meters to 4 meters in length for the non-bilingual. Nowadays they are sometimes replaced by fiberglass swords as they get nicked. More crosses. In many cemeteries the cross is placed on the perimeter of the cemetery, often at the back. In these cases the bronze sword would be on the side facing the cemetery. The cross is sometimes placed at the entrance, as here in Royal Court and Peron Road. Also at the entrance at Etaples. At Tyne-Cart, exceptionally, the cross is set upon a battlefield pillbox, and on one side you can still see the pillbox concrete. Some cemeteries have the cross in the central axis or placed more centrally in the cemetery. These would have a bronze sword on opposite sides of the cross facing up and down the cemetery. Big cemeteries such as Villers-Bretonneux, Hooge Crater, Auvier and Delville Wood. And even some small cemeteries have them on both sides, like Ham Cemetery, Railway Cutting Cemetery at Courcelles-le-Comte and Douchy-les-Ayettes. This is the Auvier Cemetery cross from the south, and this next one is from the north. And the last picture is the Railway Cutting Cemetery. The Delville Wood has the cross on both sides. On this side it's easy to see. On the next picture you can just about see the cross. Sorry, the sword. However, some large cemeteries with a central cross only have the bronze sword on one side, like Boulogne East and Duisans. Another large cemetery with a central cross only has the bronze sword on one side. This is at Wimereux. This is the Boulogne cross, and here you can see the entasis, which is built into the vertical part and the horizontal parts of the cross. Sketch of Delville Wood Cemetery. So that's the end, and many thanks to the Commonwealth War Graves Commission for allowing the use of archive material for this educational presentation. Here are the photo credits for the photos at Kingsonborne and Stockbridge. that is the end. The next one I'll look at the War Stone. Thank you very much for watching, and don't forget to buy me a coffee if you can. I'm thirsty.